Welcome to Casa de San Pedro. This is a hot spot for hummingbirds, and this is where Sheri Williamson is going to be doing her banding tomorrow. But right now we're going out to Ash Canyon Sanctuary to see what's going on there. We're on our way to Ash Canyon Reserve. Sheri Williamson and Tom Wood have a nonprofit called SABO, the Southeastern Arizona Bird Observatory, and they have taken over Ash Canyon Reserve from the estate of Mary Jo Ballator, and apparently they've done a lot of work at the place. I've seen it probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm anxious to see what Sheri and Tom have done. Today I'm at Ash Canyon Bird Sanctuary with Sheri L. Williamson and Tom Wood. I've been here before, but it was before Sheri and Tom took over this sanctuary, and I'm really anxious to see what's being done here.
Hi, Carol. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. This site was the home of Mary Jo Ballator, who was a ardent amateur naturalist and birder. She and her soon-to-be ex-husband built this beautiful home, which was a straw bale construction. Very well insulated, keeps the house warmer in winter and cooler in summer than ordinary brick and mortar or stick and siding type construction. And she and her soon-to-be ex-husband also owned a landscaping company, so they were able to landscape this beautiful area. And because of Mary Jo's interest in hummingbirds and other pollinators, she planted her gardens extensively with hummingbird attracting plants, especially the salvias, the sages,
Yes.
which that was something that was always a bonding point for Mary Jo and me, because we both love the sages. The salvias are such fantastic plants. She had a magnificent collection of sages that, unfortunately, in her last couple of years of life, she had a lot of health problems, and it was becoming harder and harder for her to take care of her own garden. So even though she did hire some help to come in one morning a week, some of her plants just were not doing very well when she passed at the end of May in 2019. Mm-hmm. This is actually the second anniversary this week of her passing. Yeah. This had been open to the birding community since 2002, when the husband split and Mary Jo found herself needing to make a living. She realized what an attractive feature she had here. She also had a rare hummingbird, the plain-capped starthroat, very rare in the United States, and it was visiting her garden, actually visited her garden for 2 summers in a row, which that was the first time we had an absolutely for sure plain-capped starthroat come to the same yard 2 years running.
Wow.
We now have a couple of instances of probable situations like that, but at the time, we just figured that those birds were just really nomadic, and we didn't expect them to come back. But this bird did come back, and so Mary Jo had it for 2 summers and early falls as her guest. And that really put her on the birding map.
Yeah.
When she threw open the gates to the birding community, that really put her on the birding map to have a rare bird like that. And she's had a number of rare birds in addition. But the real star of the show is the Lucifer Hummingbird.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the real star of the show.
He is a beautiful
And we have
hummingbird.
Lucifers here every year, and this is the best spot in the United States to see Lucifer Hummingbird, even though there are many more of them in western Texas. This is the best spot in the United States to see them because we're open to the public and we accommodate birders.
Right.
And we do have a nice little population here. It's a fairly small population this year because the drought has really hurt all of our hummingbird populations really badly in Arizona this year, actually throughout the Southwest and of course California as well,
Yes.
well into Texas as well. that's been in severely dry conditions, and the birds have really, really been hurt by that. But we were able, thanks to a very generous donation from some philanthropists in California, to purchase this property from Mary Jo's family, and with their blessing, and to maintain it in the way that she maintained it in her life, as a sanctuary for wildlife and a beautiful place for people to come and enjoy birds and other critters, pollinators, and of course her beautiful gardens and all. So
it's not only been humbling and a great honor to carry on her work here, but it's been a real eye-opener. We've got a dozen volunteers. We've got a couple of live-in caretakers. We're up here all the time, and it takes a crew of 15 people to do the work that Mary Jo was doing almost by herself.
Yeah, in her 60s and 70s.
All the work that she was doing. It is a full-time job. Just keeping the feeders full, just keeping all the fountains running. We've got about a half dozen water features, and here in this habitat, water is almost more critical than food. We feed a variety of food for a variety of birds. It's not just hummingbirds, but we have everything here from turkey and quail to jays and orioles, as well as the hummingbirds, and it's a full-time job. Now this is really the main hummingbird feeding area, and it has both feeders and lots of hummingbird adapted wildflowers. In the height of the season, which is late summer here after the rains come, we'll have about 20 hummingbird feeders up around here and also down below. And we'll have to fill them a couple of times a day often. So there's lots of birds. At one point last year, we were watching, and I was looking, I could see about 20 feeders, and each feeder had about 10 or 15 birds around it. So we had probably 200 hummingbirds in the yard at the time. And at that time, we also had a bear that was visiting every evening. So we had to take all the feeders down at night and then put them out again first thing in the morning. It becomes quite a chore.
Yeah, I used to have a house in the Sierras. I had to do the same thing. The bears would just empty them.
Yeah, we
and the raccoons.
We not only would they empty the feeders and all, but they were destroying hummingbird feeders. We lost about $100 worth of hummingbird feeders before we finally convinced everybody we needed to take them all in at night and put them all out in the morning, as much of a pain as that is.
It's a tough season right now. Everything is very, very dry, but you can see we've had a really good spring bloom. Some of the plants are still blooming. We're going to be going in today and doing a lot of pruning off the old stems, because anybody who maintains a garden, especially a salvia garden, knows that you have to do a lot of deadheading to keep the flowers in bloom. That we do feed some of the other birds right around the hummingbird garden as well, which in a year like this, when there aren't a lot of hummingbirds around, helps to add a little bit of interest to the hummingbird garden area.
We have a pair of roadrunners that are nesting nearby, and they visit several times a day. And they were coming under this seed log, which has some dried mealworms in it.
Oh, yeah.
And they were picking up the dried mealworms. So we ordered some live mealworms, and it's kind of a bribe to get them to leave our hummingbirds alone, because they are desperate enough. They have been eating some small birds.
Yeah.
Tiny little dinosaurs. But now they practically come running when we rattle the cup with.
It is really fun, because the Roadrunner has learned now that we're the source of these delicious live mealworms, and we'll actually come to the door of our little office over there at the casita and just kind of hang out like, well, where's the mealworms?
You've got him trained.
I think he's got us trained.
Yeah. That's more like it.
So we have this little garden over here. This is what we call our Lucifer Garden. This is desert plants. We even have a little ocotillo that I just cut a wand off of one of the ocotillos that was leaning a little too far out over the paths, stuck it in the ground, and it rooted, and it's blooming. And its little friend over here, it doesn't have flowers on it, but it has green leaves. So ocotillo is one of our fabulous desert plants. It's very, very important nectar source in the spring when not a lot else is blooming, since spring is our dry season here.
It always looks so strange, because they bloom in the spring regardless, but they only put on leaves when we've had rain.
Yeah.
And we haven't had rain, so there's no leaves, but there are flowers. So it's like a dead stick with a flower on it.
Yeah. We're still battling pocket gophers in this garden, unfortunately. So a number of our plants that we have lovingly planted have just been yanked underground and eaten by the gophers. But we're still working on encouraging the gophers to move a little bit elsewhere. But the Chuparrosa over here is one of the plants that the Lucifer hummingbirds particularly like. Again, with the dry season, even though it's a desert-adapted plant, this very dry year has caused the growth to be a little bit slow. It hasn't grown quite as much as we were hoping it would, but it does have flowers on it, and the lucifers do use it. So maybe this evening you guys can come back and hang out and see if the lucifers are coming and using those flowers.
I hope so.
Love all these salvias that she planted. We're going to be propagating some of these to share and also to replace plants as they die. Like this little guy, darn it. Oh, yep, see the gophers just ate it off at the bottom. Dadgummit, they just eat the roots right off of it, yeah. So, darn those gophers. Oh, man, boy, I tell you, it's a challenging place to be a gardener just from the climate alone, but when you have the wildlife fighting against you as much as these gophers fight us, it's really tough. This is Seed and Fruit Central. And we also have feeders, suet cake feeders, where we use blocks of peanut butter dough. It's peanut butter, lard in equal quantities, and then enough dry ingredients, cornmeal, oatmeal, wheat flour. You know, you can even mix in bits of dried fruit or mealworms. Dry mealworms are good to mix in. And that's just like manna from heaven. Everybody can eat that.
Because there's something in there.
Well, the hummingbirds obviously don't eat it, but all the songbirds eat it. The woodpeckers love it. Even the roadrunner will come and pick up little crumbs from the ground below the feeders. It's just really good food. It's high protein, lots of fats. So it's very good for getting the birds through the winter season. And then as we blend in more dry ingredients to keep it from melting out of the feeders during the summer, that gives them a slightly different balance of nutrients. We've got beautiful little bridal titmice. Oh, we still have pine siskins down there on the ground. They're mainly a winter bird for us, although they're strange little nomads. One year, they stayed around rather late, and must have been about this time of year, we had a little baby with little fuzzy downy on his head.
Really?
So they had apparently nested somewhere in our neighborhood and came to our feeders. And normally we think of them as going, way up into the northern Arizona where there's pines and firs and spruces and stuff. But no, some years they stick around. So they're funny little birds. They don't seem to have a super strong attachment to any one site, unlike a lot of birds, including most hummingbirds.
We're Tom Wood and Sheri Williamson of the Southeastern Arizona Bird Observatory, based out of Bisbee, Arizona. We've been Bird Observatory for 25 years here in Southeastern Arizona, doing science and education around the birds that are here. Most of our research is on hummingbirds, and Sheri is the author of the Peterson Field Guide to Hummingbirds. And we continue to do a hummingbird banding project, one of the longest running banding
hummingbird banding projects in North America.
But the acquisition of this sanctuary was kind of a shift in
our priorities.
I thought I was retired, and I find out that I'm not. But it has been an honor to have the opportunity to work here.
Yeah, this is we're into our second year of ownership of Ash Canyon Bird Sanctuary, and are thankful to have a wonderful crew of volunteers that helps us keep the place running. We definitely could not do it on our own. It is an amazing place, and it's a tremendous honor to be able to manage this site.
And we've had a number of very generous donors, and the day visitors have been generous in their donations. We spend about $10,000 a year on bird food here, whether it's sugar or oranges or peanut butter or bird seed, or all the things that go into feeding the birds. And so it's a significant expense, and there's a lot of maintenance to a place like this. But our donors and members have been generous enough that we are keeping it going. Yeah,
and of course the birds happy and the people happy, that's the reward that we cheers put in. It is a wonderful spot. Many people have seen their life Lucifer Hummingbird here, their life Montezuma Quail here. It's a great place to just kick back and relax. A lot of Arizona birding involves hiking arduous trails up mountainsides, and all kinds of fun things like that. But if you just want to kick back and relax, or for folks that have mobility issues, this kind of place is a really nice spot to come. And it is part of Arizona's contribution to the birding community at large, that we've established this tradition of hospitality in private backyards. Our founder, Mary Jo Ballator, just invited people to come sit in her yard and enjoy her birds. And she is she was one of a long line of folks stretching back 40, 50 years who would invite members of the public to come and enjoy their personal backyard sanctuaries. And it is quite an interesting phenomenon, something you don't see in other parts of the country. Southeastern Arizona has the richest diversity of hummingbirds in the United States. Right here, right along the Mexican border, we have recorded 18 species of hummingbirds, although some of those only very, very infrequently. But we regularly have 12 to 13 species that occur here during the summer months, during the breeding season. Some of those are very, very common and widespread species like Anna's hummingbird, broad-tailed hummingbird, black-chinned hummingbird. We also get migrants. We get Rufus, Allens, and Calliope strictly as migrants, but we also have a few species that reach the northern limits of their range here in southeastern Arizona, such as Rivley's hummingbird, blue-throated mountain gem, Lucifer hummingbird, broad-billed hummingbird, a violet-crowned hummingbird, one of our very favorites, such a lovely creature. So it's a tremendous place for folks to come if they're interested in birds in general, or hummingbirds in particular, because it does provide an awful lot of opportunities for viewing a wide variety of hummingbird species in relatively comfortable environments, such as here at Ash Canyon Bird Sanctuary, the Patton Center for Hummingbirds over in Patagonia, and scattered other feeding stations around southeastern Arizona that are open to the public.
This is such an incredibly different environment from what I just came back, because I just got back from Ecuador.
Oh my, yes.
And it's so green and so lush there right now. And now all of a sudden I'm transported into a desert.
Yeah, yeah.
The birds here are so different. I saw that Tom was feeding a Roadrunner earlier.
Yes, we have a pair of greater Roadrunners with babies that they need a little supplemental feeding this year because there's just not a lot of wild food around. So we're trying to support all of our wildlife the best we can. There's a kind of a motto we have about feeding stations, that when you feed birds, you're basically feeding from the bottom of the food chain up. You're feeding the vegetarians that eat grains and fruits and nuts and things like that, but then they in turn are feeding the predators. So we do have a little bit of predation going on. The Roadrunners will sometimes come in and they'll snag a finch or something like that and take it back. But it's a tough year for them. And we don't want them eating the hummingbirds.
No, we don't.
Since we have so few hummingbirds this year. So that's one of the reasons we've been supplementally feeding the Roadrunners.
I'm surprised a Roadrunner can catch a hummingbird. I mean,
they are smart. They're like little velociraptors. They are ferocious little creatures. They're very good at what they do, and predation is what they do. They're the cartoons notwithstanding. Roadrunners are most famous for killing and eating snakes and lizards, but they do eat small mammals. They eat mice and shrews and things if they can catch them. They do eat small birds, but they also eat a lot of invertebrates. They eat beetles and scorpions and centipedes and spiders, and pretty much anything that they can overpower, they will eat. Even things that are too big for them to swallow whole, they'll just bash it into little bits until they can swallow it. And they are actually quite good at laying in wait near a hummingbird feeder and then just leaping up lightning fast and grabbing a hummingbird. Hummingbirds, of course, they've been dealing with predators like that for their entire history on Earth. So it's not anything new. But in a year like this, when things are really tough on everybody, it's just better if we provide a little supplemental food to the Roadrunner to help take some of the pressure off of them. And that eases the pressure on the other birds a little bit too. This is Lucifer Central right here. We're right next to the Lucifer Garden, where we have lots of desert-adapted plants that the Lucifer hummingbirds seem to like planted, including the Chuparrosa, the penstemons. The penstemons are pretty much out of bloom right now, but adjacent we have another wonderful desert plant. We've got the ocotillo in bloom. And what the Lucifers seem to like to do in the evenings at happy hour, generally 5 to 7 p.m., they like to come in and hit whatever flowers are around, but especially hit the feeders, since those are a reliable energy source. And they'll go have a drink, and then they'll fly up and just sit for a little while and let it trickle through their systems. They go down and they have another drink, and that's how they recharge their energy supply. And this oak tree right over our heads here has lots of little naked branches, twiglets, that they like to sit on. So we have to see which lucifers come in this evening and what perches they like to sit on, and we might be able to get switched around where we can get on one of those perches and get a really good view. But right now we're sitting right under where they would be sitting in between drinks. So you don't want to look up with your mouth open, basically.
No, no.
Yeah.
I've been pooped on by so many hummingbirds on my balcony. It's nothing new to me.
Yeah, at least it washes out.
Sometimes you sit out there and you think it's raining.
That's a lot of hummingbirds.
Is it raining?
Now you're just bragging. But another spot they like to sit, one of the reasons we haven't pruned this oak tree here across from us over the boulder fountain, is that those dead twigs are wonderful perches for the birds. The birds really like that. And many of the hummingbirds like to sit up there too. Again, in between drinks, it's a smart idea for them to fly up, check out the competition, see who else might be around, make sure they're not going to immediately be strafed by somebody as they go down to take a drink at either a flower or feeder. So that's another good spot to watch. That's one of the reasons why these chairs this time of day are the perfect place to be.
This is great.
We can see most of the feeders from here. Down there at feeder number 8 is a male broadbilled, and he's just shining. Well, the light is really hitting that red bill.
Yes. Oh, come over. Get on a perch.
He's in such gorgeous light. Oh, look at that.
I know, he's shining.
Man. Never get tired of those little jewels. They are so wonderful.
They are beautiful.
Such gorgeous birds.
Oh, if one ever shows up on my balcony. And I know it's possible because one showed up in Calabasas.
Yeah,
it's only a 30-minute drive.
You look at the maps of broadbill sightings, and there's a scattering of them through southern and central California. So it's definitely a possibility. Of course, he left. He'll be back.
But that's one thing I always tell people about attracting hummingbirds to their property. People don't think of providing perches, and then they complain that they have one bird that dominates 6 feeders. It's because the bird can stay up on the tree. It's the only place for it to perch, and it can guard all those feeders. If you put the perches close to a feeder, you create territories.
Yeah, you can't be too obsessively tidy a gardener.
No.
If you're going to attract hummingbirds.
Yeah, you need dead twigs.
You need dead twigs for perches. You need spider webs for nest material. Yeah. You can't be too tidy. The one place you need to be tidy is in keeping your flowers pinched back so that they keep producing flowers. Keep the deadheading up during the peak blooming season so you can keep flowers on the plants.